Welcome back, everybody. Now, in a world where the intersection of public and private interests shapes the cultural landscape, the importance of collective responsibility to sustain and foster profitability in the arts cannot be overstated. Celebrating for decades with the recent Standard Bank exhibition titled SBYA Visual Art 1984 to Now, which is a partnership between the Standard Bank Corporate Art Collection and the SABC Collection. Now, this collaboration offers a rare glimpse into artworks that are as much of the public good, public as they are for private appreciation, encouraging a shared cultural experience. Complementing this are esteemed institutions like the Rupert Museum and the Wits Art Museum, dedicated to educational enrichment, alongside the Johannesburg Art Gallery and Iziko museums. The public collections that expand our understanding of just how art and heritage are curated, preserved and celebrated. For our discussion this morning, we're joined by Dr. Mdluli, Curator and Manager of Standard Bank Gallery, Koulla Xinisteris, Curator at the SABC Collection and Bougaard, the Education Curator at the Wits Art Museum. Ladies, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Morning. Thanks for having us.
And Bougaard, and a special warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now, Koulla, I'm going to start with you. You know, the SBYA Visual Art 1984 to now, I mean, it represents a rare dialogue between public and corporate, collections. So what conversations had to happen for this partnership to take place?
You're talking about the Standard Bank Award exhibition and the SABC collection, the partnership.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The partnership is very relevant because both collections, both institutions, one being private or public, and the other one being a collection which is not a state-owned enterprise. These two collections have an important dialogue in that the SABC, for instance, bought a lot of work even before they emerged to become award-winning or prize-winning artists. So it made sense, and I'm very grateful that the Standard Bank, that Sami came and said, can we have a look at your work? And there were, I think, 6 artists, Sami, that were chosen for the exhibition. It's a language that supersedes collections and institutions.
Yeah.
Artists are everywhere, and they should be everywhere.
Yeah.
So it collapses boundaries of a kind that people put for identity purposes or for the conflicts that happen in the world.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Sami, she couldn't put it better that, it's a language that transcends institutions. And how have these collections evolved in their purpose from prestige to cultural archives of national memory?
Well, I think it's just also in the caliber of the artists that the collections hold themselves, as Koulla was mentioning, that even before some of them won this award, collections like SABC were already eyeing their creativity and their works and the kind of commentary they were making. But I think it's also, what the works themselves also represent about where we are as a country, and not only the state of art, but I guess the state of the nation, right? That some of these, the things that the artists highlight in their works are still very much, I think, social issues that we're still confronting today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bougaard, let me also bring you into this conversation. How does the SBYA 1984 to now sort of enhance the Wits Art Museum's role as, an educational bridge between academia, arts and the public?
I think in many ways, having these collections coming forward, it really allows the viewers, the community that come into these spaces, an opportunity to really engage with these type of works that are super, as both my colleagues have mentioned, pertinent. And it allows a space where learning can happen through engagement, curiosity, and conversation. So I suppose with a lot of the panel discussions that they bring forward, with the walkabouts and all of these different spaces, it offers a space where dialogue can really happen, understanding what the work is speaking to, and just a space for multiple voices to be heard. offering a space where both families and communities can connect in meaningful ways. And with some of the works also coming from on the exhibition from our museum, we're also happy to get them to be viewed in these spaces, a lot of the contemporary works as well, and seeing that range from the past to now as well.
And having said that, Bougaard, how can institutions like the Wits Art Museum help reimagine, the future of public access in an increasingly digital and globalized art world?
Yeah, that's a very important and I think prevalent question for today. And I think one of the things that we're also trying to do at the moment is actually digitize our collection. I know that there's a lot of spaces that's also really started that process, and we're in the process as well of getting it going. But it's also really about funding and getting that forward as well to allow these things to materialize. But that's very much a part of what we're focusing on doing to really allow that access. And also on our social media, what we do try and do as well is just highlight a couple of works that we have available. We create educational resources that viewers can engage with, especially school groups, that also brings the collection in a particular way so that they can use it in their syllabus as well, see what works we have, and then just always welcome them into the spaces. But I suppose that's the way that the digital kind of comes through in our space, in the small space. On our website, we have our artworks available in that way.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Sami, in the context of corporate ownership or corporate collections, there's often a debate about, ownership versus stewardship. So how do you interpret the idea of corporate citizenship in an arts world?
Well, I mean, if you look at the Standard Bank corporate art collection itself and its breadth in terms of what's in the collection, it extends beyond just having it as this asset that you put up in your buildings, but it actually supports an ecosystem, right? An ecosystem of artists in supporting them in a very tangible way of literally buying their works. In addition to that, through exhibitions like this, you're actually adding to the provenance of the work as well. So, the more they're exhibited, the more valuable they become. The more they are written about, the more valuable they become for research and engagement with students and scholars. Yeah. And so I think those are the ways, the active ways that, when we talk about the art ecosystem, that it's made up of all these contributing factors that come in and then, enhance and propel, I think, the industry itself.
I mean, just considering this partnership between Standard Bank and SABC, I mean, both your institutions operate in environments where profitability often collides with public good. How do you ensure then that art remains more than just a line item in corporate or institutional budget, as it were?
Well,
I'd love both of you actually to respond to that.
Look, given that we're a state-owned enterprise, the SABC, we have a mandate. So if ever we're in financial difficulties, which is obviously the case often, the collection's worth a lot of money, it might pay salaries for 1 month. But our mandate secures us because this is a public collection. It's not a collection that can be suddenly used as collateral or sold in any kind of way. And, I act like a policeman when every 5 years there's a new regime and, the collection is like people sat up when you actually gave the financial value of the collection. Prior to that, I was slipping through the cracks with 50,000 Rand as a budget to begin collecting.
Right.
And collecting smartly, going to auctions. The neglected tradition of artists during the apartheid years came on shocking prices. 1,500 Rand, 2,500 Rand, it's outrageous.
Sure.
But I managed to get them, a lot of them, into the collection. That was my aim, to represent what was completely neglected. And art is such a beautiful, pertinent language. You don't need, the different languages. Like English doesn't need to be learned. You can see the human condition through the visual. And when we look at one another, we've all got the same eyes.
That is so profound. Dr. Sami, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think from a Standard Bank point of view, in terms of growing the collection, again, I think it's about, growing an ecosystem of, you're not just acquiring to kind of blow your own horn, so to speak, but there's value and, investing in artists through doing that. And then, ensuring that it's a line item in budget. Again, it's about substantiating why it is important for us to collect in the moment that we're collecting, because as you can see now with this exhibition, we're able to look back at some of these artists and where the trajectory they've taken. And I mean, William Kentridge right now is one of the top-selling living artists, and he won the award in 1987 as a young, I think, artist. So it's about, I think, sustaining those kinds of very strategic ways of supporting the arts, with not just in the monetary sense, but an actual exchange that benefits artists in the end.
Absolutely. And it's far more than just the monetary value, Bougaard. How then would you measure the success of an educational curation, not just in the visitor numbers, but in terms of the cultural literacy?
I think it's definitely seeing the enjoyment and excitement from the students as they come through the space. Just seeing that moment where they go, wow, oh my gosh, I knew that, I never understood that. I think that's the real measure of success, knowing that you can also engage with them on that level and see the excitement from not seeing art as the sort of abstract thing, but then understanding it as like just a main sort of like part of our society, speaking to the larger part of what we are experiencing. I think, as I mentioned, really a part of the human condition, about the fabric of our society and how it actually is a part of our everyday lives. And just seeing the students' faces light up, understanding that art can be part of multiple different avenues, not just located to the arts, but a part of mathematics, there's science to it, and having all these different departments, having learners all the way from grade R to university coming into the space and seeing its importance. I think that's how you really measure the success, and through that understanding and love.
And also taking into cognizance that partnerships like this are often driven by the ideals, but also shaped by the differing mandates. So the big question, Bougaard, is how then do you navigate the tensions between corporate branding and public accessibility?
So I suppose there's a lot of conversations that need to take place. And I guess it's just trying to allow the greater community to know that this is their space. It's very much the voices and the stories that they are bringing forward and allowing that to come into the spaces. So it becomes a space of communication, engagement, and a place where they can really feel that it is their own, that everyone is represented. Their stories are being heard, our stories are being heard. And I think that's how we really get that sort of conversations happening, so that it's not just the higher ends that are involved. It doesn't just become a top-down sort of model, but it's a sort of inclusive model where we're all engaging together. And what is being spoken about isn't just speaking to one narrative, but to a larger sense.
Thanks for that.
I do hope I answered that.
Thanks for making that point, Bougaard. And Koulla, and I suppose this partnership reveals the shifting role of art collections in post-apartheid South Africa's cultural economy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've got important roles to play. When you talk about cultural economy, you're talking about the financial value.
Well, holistically, the financial value and as well as the cultural heritage
I think it's,
in the world of the arts.
Yeah, I think it's a communication tool that we all don't like to necessarily expose or talk about. And the arts is an international communication tool of the human condition. And if we can tap into that, if we can have more, and like education is hugely important, taking children to those spaces so that we don't have a world that the more it changes, the more it stays the same. We need to shift. Art can do that because it's a global language. And the more that we can start with children, bringing them into these spaces, allowing them to explore who they are. We're talking about, it's not competition. Sports has a huge thing. Everybody loves it. The stadiums are packed. People are raving about them. The arts need the same support. And if we're more honest with one another, if we, as a community, as a world, if we can start talking from the heart, we're in sync with art.
But then how extensive should this shift be? Should it be a shift in stature? Should it be a shift in presentation?
It should not be something that's just hidden under the carpet. It's something that needs to... I mean, my biggest job at the SABC was not necessarily finding the best works in arts. It was lobbying for this collection to be taken seriously. And that's part of education.
You know, Dr. Sami, she made a valid point. I mean, just bearing in mind the fact that South African art collections have long reflected questions of identity and belonging and as well as power. So then how do you see the act of curation today as a form of nation building?
Well, curating itself is a form of storytelling, right? And a powerful tool of storytelling because, again, to Koulla's point, it uses a universal language, one that just requires us to look and see and interpret and think about what we're looking at. And then, you know, the big part, again, is one, accessibility, and accessibility in both, you know, in the physical form and in, you know, the understanding of art and the language, the visual language and visual literacy that comes along with it. So I think it's also about, you know, creating less intimidating spaces. And that's precisely, I think, what we've done with the Standard Bank Art Lab by placing it within a mall, which is, you know, an everyday kind of space that anyone can go into. It's free to enter. But again, I think it really is about shifting in how do we make these spaces more accessible and less intimidating.
And less intimidating as well.
Very good point.
Absolutely. And then what does it reveal about South Africa's definition of emerging talent? And has that definition evolved over the past years?
Sure, there's always emerging talent. There always will be. What we've also got to look out for is the comfort. Even artists who are very privileged and they're in a position of the haves rather than the have-nots are likely to make derivative work, are likely to make work that's just comfortable selfies. We've got to watch out, and the curator's eye hopefully will be the thing to discern and find those very works that move us or that reflect progress in some way, whatever it might be, as long as it's authentic. The minute we've got chocolate box images, you know, just a bland smile, it's not enough.
Now, Bougaard, just as a reflection of this conversation as we wrap it up, as custodians of cultural memory, what keeps you up at night and what keeps you hopeful?
I think very much knowing that the space offers an opportunity for the public to come through and engage and really get a sense of the heritage that is contained within the collection, knowing that we have future generations walking through, that the education model that we've put in place allows the youth to come through and, as my colleagues have mentioned as well, just have the heart of learning what really sits at the focus of our society. And I think through the programs that we offer, community engagements, the free programming that we put together at the Wits Art Museum, I know that it really just offers a space that's beyond the classroom, that gives an extension of what they can look at, but also think through, that can allow for an active engagement and just keep heritage alive in a dynamic and really relevant way in today's society, and keep conversations happening from what has been happening in the past through the works that we are engaging with and to the works that are being curated and spoken about now.
And especially in in an era where attention spans are largely fragmented and culture increasingly commodified. Great chatting to you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, that was Dr. Mdluli, curator and manager of Standard Bank Gallery, Koulla Xinisteris, curator at the SABC Collection, and Bougaard, education curator at the Wits Art Museum, talking to us about the importance of preserving our cultural identity in the world of arts.